If you're worried that you're not maintaining your 3D printer enough, or felt like you're constantly adjusting things and still having problems, then this video is for you. Beginner printer maintenance is often explained in ways that make it way more confusing and difficult than it needs to be. Today I'm going to show you actually what matters, what you can ignore for now, and how to keep your printer running without constantly tearing it apart. This video is a part of my beginner 3D printer basics series, where I focus on practical, real-world advice to help you print more and troubleshoot less. So let's get into it. So what is printer maintenance and why do we need to do it if these machines are supposed to be so great and plug and play? Well, it's not about constant tuning, but it is about making sure nothing is preventing your printer from doing exactly what it's supposed to do. If your printer was printing well yesterday and suddenly it isn't, the cause is usually something pretty simple. So what are the 4 things that beginners should actually check? Well, let's start with number 1, the belts. Loose belts can cause skip layers, wobbly prints, inconsistent lines. So what you want to look for here is that your belts are snug, not tight like a guitar string, but snug, and that there's no visible fraying or slack. The next one is to look at your rails or rods. So you want to make sure that dust and debris hasn't built up over time, especially if you're in a home setup where things can be dusty, your furnace is coming on and kicking things around. You always want to make sure that those are clean. So you want to check for visible dust or debris and you want to wipe that clean with a dry cloth. If it moves smoothly and quietly, then you know you're doing fine. Number 3 is the nozzle condition. So nozzles are consumable and replacing them is normal. But this isn't something you should be replacing every week or even every month. Signs that it might need some attention though are that there's inconsistent extrusion, you have gaps or blobs, or maybe you get clicking sounds. You didn't break anything, it's just a part of printing. I recently had clicking sounds within my nozzle, and I've experienced that before, so I knew what it was. I knew that the gears inside were a little bit dirty, and that this meant it needed to come apart, get cleaned, and get put back together. I was able to take care of all of that within about 10 minutes, and then had everything working fine afterwards, and there's no more clicking sounds within my printer. Number 4 here is the parts that has screws or can obviously become loose. These printers vibrate. There's a whole lot of movement going on in there and things can loosen over time. You want to look for any visibly loose screws and you want to gently tighten them, but don't overdo it. One of the main ones that seems to come undone, especially in these Bamboo A1s, I haven't experienced it with the A1 Mini yet, but with my 2 A1s I have, are the screws that are directly behind the nozzle. And I often find myself having to remove that nozzle, tighten those screws, and then I'm getting a clean print again. Now let's talk about some maintenance that beginners worry about too much and that you don't have to constantly do. So you don't need to re-level your printer after every single print. You don't need to go in and retune your firmware. Personally, if Bamboo puts out an update on the firmware on the printers, I often ignore it for the first week or two, let them work out the kinks on the back end, and then I will choose to update it. I have found a couple times that when I've updated it right away, it's actually caused me a couple problems with my prints. So I've learned, and now I wait for them to find the hiccups in their updates before I put them onto my printers. You also don't need to constantly lubricate. You don't want to over lubricate your machines. For the most part, the lubrication on them lasts for quite a while. So you want to make sure that you're not building that up inside your machine. If your printer is always apart, then it obviously isn't printing and doing what you want it to do. So let's try to not always be taking it apart to fix things that don't really need to be fixed. So what's a really great maintenance rhythm to get into then? One that will work for most beginners and most people actually in general overall, no matter how long you've had your 3D printing business for, is that every few prints, just do a quick visual check. If you're noting buildup of any pieces of filament, use something to clean them off. I have this little rechargeable air gun. I actually use it in my bakery so that I can dry out the print head on my edible printer when I have to clean that. But it doubles really, really well in here because I can use it to spray out all those little pieces of filament that get into the nooks and crannies of my printers. On a weekly regimen, you also want to be checking those rails, make sure that they're not dusty, give them a good wipe. Every month, you want to be checking those belts and screws, make sure that they're nicely tight. And that's also a good time to check and make sure that your machine is well lubricated. Now, if you're printing less prints, you're going to have to lubricate less often. If you're printing more prints, you're going to have to lubricate more often. So that's all really dependent on what you're doing with your machines. And then as needed, you're going to replace those nozzles. You want your maintenance to support your printing, not replace it. So try to work it into a good schedule that it'll help keep your printers running while not feeling overwhelming. If printer maintenance has been stressing you out, simplify it. Most issues don't require major fixes. Drop a comment below if there's something about printer maintenance that you're really unsure about, and we'll see if the community can provide some support to help you along. Please give us a like, and if you're following along in the beginner series, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next and final video that's a part of this series. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, happy printing!